Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. I'm just going to jump right into it. I was overthinking this episode, and then I realized the part where Alan Watts speaks that I'm going to play is exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about things becoming dreadful when you overthink them. And that's exactly what I was doing. And then I realized I have to just make this work play. So we're going to play the Joe Rogan clip. They're talking about hard work. And then I'm like, let's see if Alan Watts has anything on hard work. And he starts talking about washing dishes. And I realized this is such an interesting take from Alan Watts. And he's talking about hard work, but he's doing it in a way that only he can. And it's just amazing. So I'm going to play the Rogan clip first. Then we have a shorter Rogan clip. Then I'm going to jump into Alan Watts. Let's go.
How he's so successful because he's working with the CIA.
CIA's helping him.
Goes to jail, learns how to read. When he becomes a lawyer in jail, gets himself off because they tried him on 3 strikes, but they did it for 1 incident. So they did it incorrectly. And so he gets out of jail.
So incarceration educated him to the point where he got himself out.
But his origins are as a tennis player.
As a tennis player.
He's a tennis player, like a really good tennis player.
You know, Menendez brothers, excellent tennis players. One of them played at UCLA.
Maybe not the best example. One guy's I'm talking about a guy from South Central LA who can't read.
True.
Just to say it's not necessarily an elite sport.
That's what you're saying.
To be. It's just a sport.
I agree.
And all you need is a court. I mean, it seems pretty cheap. You need a flat surface, a tennis racket, and a ball. Like, let's go.
The kids that were beating me when I was a pro played on a dirt court with a rope tied between 2 sticks. These South American and Russian players, it was not a money sport. It was not a sport of money. It was a sport of movement and competition. And because there's no clock, you can have as much time as you want to figure out and beat down your opponent. So that gets a certain type of athlete. You know, I think it was Jimmy Connors who said, "I didn't lose. I just ran out of time in that match. I would have figured it out, but unfortunately he beat me." Yeah, what happened with me? I was trying to be a stand-up comic that I was trying to so badly that I was trying to remove the athletic stigma. Even now, you sometimes say tennis and people kind of back up. But as I got better at comedy and more confident in my abilities, I said, why am I shying away from the sport that I love and that is such a foundational part of me?
Isn't that weird that you felt like you had to move away from athletics in order to fit in comedy?
That's probably a more succinct way to say it. And the new book that's out right now, Lucky Loser, is all about how I'm now embracing this tennis because it gave me all the skills to actually be good in comedy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Discipline, realizing, like the tennis player that you were talking about, that if you do put in the work over time, the results will pay off and you'll see it.
And you're alone.
Yeah.
Figure that out by yourself. You're alone, and you're going to have
no teammates,
success and failure. When I was 8 years old, I lost in the finals of the Ann Arbor Junior Open, and I realized I was going to lose, and I started crying on the court. And my older brother runs on the court and holds me like a child. I'm crying. There's a picture of that in the book. Now, as a parent, I'm going, who the f took that picture? Right? I'm just a kid crying, and my brother's holding me. Is my parents taking that picture?
They did it for the gram.
But man, as a comic, holy shit, we've all felt like that. Yeah. Oh man, it's so personal when you fail as a comic.
Well, it's important to learn how to lose at things, at everything.
Yes.
Like if you marry your high school sweetheart and you guys never broke up, and that's like, you probably missed out. I mean, congratulations on achieving the most difficult thing humanly possible that everybody admires, right?
Yes.
When you meet a couple, and like I have 2 friends of mine that have actually been dating since they were like 16 years old, and now they're married with kids in their 40s. Congratulations. But I think there's some value in getting your ass kicked.
Yeah.
I think there's some value in a girl saying, no, I don't even like you. Like, no, you don't like me? You know, I think it's good. Getting dumped is good. I think all that's valuable. I think you have to learn. And I don't think you learn by winning all the time. And I don't think you learn if something's easy, which is why really handsome and really beautiful people are often ridiculous in the way they behave.
That's true.
Because they have 5 aces.
Right.
And, you know, and they didn't earn them. They were just born with 5 aces.
So how do you instill grit, toughness in a generation? As a parent, I see my 5-year-old struggling. I oftentimes pop in. Let me get that for you. You know, she's trying to do little things, trying to do the buttons on her shirt. We got to, you know, and I do it for her, and I think I shouldn't do it for her. She should be struggling to do this. But this is a big issue right now, right? The younger generation, you hear that word grit. How do we instill that?
Well, sports is a great way to do it. It doesn't work with everybody because some people play sports and they come out even cuttier. They come out more aggressive or more competitive or more psychotic in their pursuits, and it just like it alienates everything else in their life.
Or it creates trauma for them. Not real trauma, but...
Or real trauma.
Yeah.
Fucking head trauma if you're playing football.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's... I think difficult things are important for kids. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be art. It could be music. It could be something. But I think there's something when you put your attention to something and realize you can get better at this thing and you find yourself in that thing and you find your potential in that thing that you focus on. It doesn't have to, it's not necessarily that it has to define you, because oftentimes it does, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When people are really good at a thing, it becomes the whole essence of who they are as a person.
Yep.
But it's a valuable tool for elevating your human potential. And it's also a way that you can quantify effort versus results. And you can do that in sports and games and in chess and in art and things that are difficult. Like you can say, like, I am so much better at playing guitar now because I've been playing 3 hours a day for 6 months. And look what I can do now. So I know that there's a thing. And it teaches you that if there's a thing that you really love and you focus on it, that thing, if someone does it for a living, why can't you?
Yeah.
Why can't you?
Yeah.
Why do I have to be in this fucking bullshit office, in this cubicle with these stupid papers that I don't give a shit about that I have to fill out for this company that I don't give a fuck about?
All right. So that's Joe Rogan talking a little bit about how to build grit, what needs to be done, today's generation. And I was like, Alan Watts doesn't have anything where he talks about this type of thing. But I was actually wrong, but I'm not going to jump to Alan Watts' clip just yet. I'm just going to jump over to another Rogan clip quickly, okay? And then we're just going to jump into the Alan. I want to end with Alan, of course.
Sort of organized exercise. I feel great.
Why don't you do it more often then?
I need to. It's a weird thing. It's like...
Come on, that's what I'm talking about.
It's like this weird sort of, you got to do it, but I often make the decision, like, because I've made this decision every time I go to a new hotel when I'm on the road. I say, this weekend, I'm going to work out. I pack my gym clothes. I put them in the thing. I say, okay, tomorrow morning when I get up, I'm going to go to the gym. Then I get up in the morning, and then I just, go get lunch.
Do you brush your teeth? Do you take a shit?
I
go
do.
to the gym.
I do.
Just go to the gym.
Yeah.
Just don't give yourself an out. The problem is you give yourself an out.
Yeah.
Like, you can't give yourself an out.
Why do I do that, though?
It's Stephen Pressfield wrote about it in The War of Art.
Yeah.
It's a great book. If you haven't read it, The War of Art. It's a real small book. I used to have a stack of them. I used to hand them out to guests. He talks about this thing that we all have, everyone has, and not just me. I mean, everybody that does anything has. And it's like this voice in your head that wants you to do nothing. This voice in your head, and he calls it resistance.
Yeah.
And he talks about this resistance that is in your head and that you have to decide that you are a professional. This is what a professional does. A professional goes to work and they give in to the muse. Okay, the concept of the muse, whether or not it's real, but the concept of the muse is you settle in and receive creativity almost like as a divine gift from this magical entity, the muse. Now, whether or not it's real is not important. What's important is if you treat it as if it's real, it does work. And what works is if you dedicate your time and your focus, like realistically, with a professional, disciplined effort to creativity. You show up every day like a professional, but you show up to be creative. If you just do it on a regular basis, ideas will come to you. Where are these ideas coming from? Well, his concept was to think of it as you're a professional and you're getting these ideas from the muse. And this is what you do. You show up and you do the work, you focus on it, and these ideas will come to you. And that's really true. If you really stop and think about it, if you write something, whether it's the most brilliant thing you've ever written or whether you're not good at editing and it turns out to be dog, where's that coming from, man? You're just sitting down in front of your laptop and these thoughts are coming to you and all of a sudden you're talking about a kid who's riding a bike and he gets attacked by a werewolf. Like, where the fuck is this coming from? If it's not coming from the muse, where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from my creativity. Okay. Do you know how to access your creativity like you can blink? No, you don't. Do you know how to access your activity like you can lick something or perform any sort of physical function that's repeatable? No, you don't. It's a non-repeatable thing. Treat it like it's magic. But treat it like you're a professional and you show up to engage with the magic.
So now it's funny because Rogan's very drill sergeant about this, as Rogan will be, with his shoulders and his arms, shaved head, you know, very drill sergeant about this, even when it's about creativity, something as, you know, possibly esoteric as creativity. It's very, you know, show up every day in the muse. Even talking about the muse is supposed to be this magical thing that comes and bestows these ideas on you. But he's very much like, you show up for that muse and that muse will tell you what to do. And then you hear Alan Watts talk about it. And of course, Alan Watts is going to have a different view than Joe Rogan. But it's just interesting the way he breaks this down. Now he's talking about cleaning houses. You know what? I should go back a little further where he talks about the 5 questions. And then he'll get into washing dishes. Okay? Listen to this.
He's going to be full of energy when he gets through his job. Or suppose you're condemned to be a housewife, which is the most lowly of all occupations, and you have to clean up. You know, I've said that there are only 4 fundamental philosophical questions. The first is, who started it? The second is, are we going to make it? The third is, where are we going to put it? And the fourth is, who's going to clean up? And this is the lowliest of all occupations. The housewife who washes the dishes and the garbage collector who takes away the stuff. And he has to find out where we're going to put it. So now, who's going to clean up? Incidentally, if you ask yourself these 4 questions in order, who started it? Are we going to make it? Where are we going to put it? And who's going to clean up? It prompts a 5th question, which is it serious? Like, doctor, is it serious? Well, supposing it isn't. And then the housewife who's going to clean up approaches washing dishes in an entirely different spirit. And don't think that I'm some sort of male chauvinist who's trying to talk women into the idea of staying in their place. Because I'm perfectly willing to wash dishes too, because the art of washing dishes is that you only have to wash one at a time. If you're doing it day after day, you have in your mind's eye an enormous stack of filthy dishes which you have washed up in years past, and an enormous stack of filthy dishes which you will wash up in years future. But if you bring in your mind to the state of reality, which is, as I've pointed out to you, only now. This is where we are. There is only now. You only have to wash one dish. It's the only dish you'll ever have to wash, this one. You ignore all the rest, because in reality, there is no past and there is no future. There is just now. So you wash this one. And instead of thinking, have I got it really clean, as my mother taught me with an angry voice, that I had to get every little scrap off it, you know, and she got angry at you. Instead, you turn the cleaning movement into a dance. Like this. And you dig that. And you swing that plate around, and you let the rinsing water go over it, and you put it off in the rack. Crazy. See? Take the next one. And you get this rhythm going. See? And you're not under compulsion all the time. You know, when I was a little boy and went to school in England, I had to learn the piano. They called it playing the piano. But actually, they said you must play. We had in England compulsory games. They used to post notices on the bulletin board in the school where I went to, which said, this afternoon, everyone will go for a run. And if you didn't go for a run, and it was found out that you hadn't, you were flogged. So everybody hated going for a run, because they were under compulsion to play. Everybody must play. It's like the whole game of life we're all involved in. It's only a game, but everybody has got to belong. So we went running. I remember one day I was out on a run, and I was trying to enjoy myself because I was running on the balls of my feet, dancing along. And a fellow came up behind me who was running on his heels. He was jogging. And he was going clump, 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 clump. And I said to him, what's the matter with you? You're running on your heels and you're jarring your whole body all the way through. Okay, but he stuck to it and he became the champion long distance runner of the school. But he didn't enjoy it, it was work. And all he enjoyed was the suffering that he endured that made him feel that he had really contributed to the human race because he suffered so much. He identified his existence and his worth with his suffering. Really great runners dance when they run. They don't necessarily follow a straight course. They may weave. And in the same way, if you happen to witness in the year 1970, the World Cup Championship in soccer, you would have seen that the winning team from Brazil played soccer in a most extraordinary way. They played it like basketball. They played it dancing. The way we learned soccer in school when I was a boy was very, very formal and orderly, and we didn't really enjoy it. But these fellows were bouncing balls off their shoulders, off every muscle, and they had astonishing teamwork. But at the same time, dancing the game, and the sports writer in the London Times said that they danced their way to victory. So the point is, therefore, that you can do everything you have to do in this spirit. Don't make a distinction between work and play. Regard everything that you're doing as play, and don't imagine for 1 minute that you've got to be serious. See, this is the real secret of life. To be completely engaged with what you're doing in the here and now. Instead of calling it work, realize that this is play. In Hindu philosophy, the whole creation is regarded as the Vishnu Leela. That means the play of Vishnu. Leela means dance or play, and from it we get our word lilt. They also, in Hindu philosophy, call the world an illusion. And in Latin, the root of the word illusion is ludere, to play. Because all this going on, the swinging of the ball, the pattern in which the flower goes, is just to swing. And if you take it seriously and say, are you doing anything useful? Useful for what? Useful to go on. But if you take that attitude to going on becomes a drag. Survival becomes a sweat, and it's not worth it. And if you teach your children, and they'll imitate you, they'll treat survival as a sweat which they have to undergo, they have to keep going on, and they'll teach their children to do it, and the whole continuation of the human race will be a drag, which is in fact what it's become because of this attitude, and this is the reason why we've invented the atomic bomb and are preparing to commit suicide. Because we think we must happen. And to the degree that we think we must happen, we hate it. And are going to bring it to an end. Stop it. So I was about to say seriously, but I'm going to change my words and say sincerely. Suggest. You know, I'm not, in talking to you, I'm not preaching. I'm not actually serious, because I'm really with this rather than any kind of deep philosophy and so on. So I suggest to you sincerely. G.K. Chesterton once said that the angels fly because they take themselves lightly. How much more so then he, she, who is Lord of the angels. The whole world is 3 for a penny, 3 for a pound, 'tis love that makes the world go round. Or in the words of Dante, but my own wings were not so fluttering, were not for such a flight, except that Smiting through the mind of me, there came fulfillment in a flash of light, that my volition now and my desires were moved like wheel revolving even by love that moves the sun starry fire.
Man, man, the page I got that from, True Meaning. Gotta hit that subscribe button myself. If you're into it, yeah, you should too. This is a beautiful, beautiful video there. And, you know, competing ideas from Alan Watts and Joe Rogan, right? But at the same time, very much the same. It's like work and play is, like Alan Watts said, this dance that happens. And I guess you do have to, like Rogan says, you show up seriously. If you can go to the washroom and brush your teeth, and you can go to the gym, show up, right? But then when you show up, you have to dance like Alan Watts is doing. You have to dance once you get there. You have to have fun with it. You know, that whole thing about compulsion. You know, I said at the beginning of the episode, I was overthinking things. I'm like, oh, maybe I should get this clip, and maybe I should do this and this. And that's why some videos you see me do, I end up with like 18 clips because I'm overthinking it. I'm like, I have to contribute. It can't possibly be as easy as me just doing what I want to do. I have to contribute. I have that. Just like he was talking about his friend with the running. I do that all the time. I think a lot of us do. You know, we think it can't be just this easy as us doing the thing that we're just in our mind, we should do this. You know, like Rogan was talking about, like, why should I be in this office, in this cubicle, about this stuff I don't give a F about. You know, we think we have to do this, that whole, you know, trap of sorts. And it's because it can't possibly be so easy that we just do the thing that we've always wanted to do. You know, we must, you know? So it's like Rogan's very structured. Alan's dancing through it all, right? And I guess both are right. You have to show up serious, but you have to dance through it. And don't move with compulsion, but move with fun. You know, that mindset that he talked about with the dishes, you know, knowing that you're here and now. Again, such opposite ideas, but, you know, talking about the same thing. You know, Rogan's just saying it more rigid, I guess you could say. But that whole thing about showing up and knowing that here and now is the only thing. So this one dish is the only dish you have to wash. That is a major groove to kind of grind into your psyche. That's very, very hard to just, because I used to do that constantly with the jobs that I would work. I would always do that. I would always walk in grocery stores. I would work these jobs that I would just take any job I could get. It was just like, whatever. We're in a grocery store. We're making shoes. Fine. We're making exit signs. Cool. We're in a distribution center. I don't care. What are we doing? We're order picking. What are we doing? We work in a freezer. I got to put on that suit. Fine. Whatever. I would just work whatever, you know? And I would always quit because I would always walk in with this mindset of I have to do this until I'm 60, until I'm 7, until I'm old. And I would be a young man, 20, 19. And I'd be like, how is this going to work? And it just went on like that for years and years. And I've worked like 50 jobs because of that mindset, because I couldn't let go and just play with it. Everything felt so serious. My life was so serious. Although I was playing around, I was effing around like crazy. I was smoking every day. I wasn't really working towards anything. I would listen to stuff like this, and I was doing the work in the spiritual realm, you could say, and I was studying and learning things. But I was playing. But at the same time, I would get so serious when it came to the thing that I didn't want to do, that I felt like I had to do. But I didn't have to do it, you know? So that was me. And where my turning point came is when I was working in a factory that made baby toys. And the reason I got this job is because I met the lady that is around here right now, that is now the mother of my children, my wife. I had just met her, and I wanted to be more stable. And I was like, because I knew right away, 2 months in, I was like, I'm going to marry this girl. I'm for sure marrying this person, 100%. Like, it goes without saying. And I was right. Good, really good woman. So I knew I was going to marry her, so I knew I had to get stable. I couldn't keep switching jobs all the time. I couldn't do it. So I walked into this factory finally. I got this job. You know, I was like assistant warehouse manager. Really, I was just an order picker, and it was a small company, so they could just call me assistant manager of a warehouse. But in reality, I was just picking orders, you know, making sure things are clean and, you know, having fake conversations with people at water coolers and stuff. That's what I was doing. And I finally just gave in. And it wasn't a have to type of thing. I wanted to be more stable, but it wasn't a have to kind of thing. I went from have to get to. Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard that concept. When you have to do something, it's unbearable, like Alan Watts is saying. You know? Joe Rogan's talking about it, showing up. You know, it sounds unbearable, even with creativity. It's like I have to show up and I have to give myself to this muse and I have to do. But you don't have to do that. You get to do that. So when I shifted from that perspective, all of a sudden, it became easy to walk into this job, where other times I would have been like, this is terrible, another job like this. I walked into this one really hyped up. I was really happy. And it's so funny the way once you start to play, and again, maybe not playing with the job because I just started, but I started playing with life, and I started saying, okay, like I'm going to dance. This is great. This is great. Got a job at a warehouse. Fantastic. Forklift. Great. It's electric. Fantastic. I can charge it up. I won't have to change propane tanks. You know, seeing the better side of things. And then I walk in and they say, this is Julian. Julian's a filmmaker, but he works here in the warehouse. He's going to show you everything you need to know. And the next thing you know, and I've always wanted to do film. I always wanted to do this. And the next thing you know, I'm working with a guy who knows all about that. And it made it even easier to play in this position because now it was two guys, both wanted to do film. He's teaching me a bunch of stuff. So it's like the work was fine. It became easy to work hard. And that's the thing I think that Alan Watts is trying to get across. You know, Joe Rogan's talking about just showing up and doing it. Just stop moaning and complaining. Show up and do it. Alan Watts is talking about you can handle a tremendous amount of work if you're willing to just be here and now and have fun. And that's what I started doing. And that was my turning point. And that was one of the longest jobs I worked. He sold me a bunch of camera equipment, and you know, I started learning that equipment because he was there to teach me, and it was a fantastic time. You know, now of course I ended up having all the equipment, and I got into a situation where a friend of mine was like, quit your job and work with me. And I was like, okay. And it led to me becoming a videographer, and that led to a job in film and television, and that led to podcasting. And you know, it all just, again, just playing, being okay with where you're at, you know, not the have to, not the compulsion, but the fun, not the have to, but the dance. And things changed for me. Now, of course, I did switch jobs again, which I promised the girlfriend at the time that I wouldn't, but she was okay with it. Remarkably, she was okay with it. But now it paid off. She's a stay-at-home mom now, so there's that. But I guess you really have to think about that. It's always like playing. It's like when you play, you become okay. Like, think about Joe Rogan. You guys watch Joe Rogan like I do. You can go back to episode 1. They're playing. They didn't know what they were doing, right? It was like a kid playing with a rock. And as the kid plays with the rock, maybe he throws it up in the air, you know, and then it hits something and it dings. And then all of a sudden there's a little shiny spot. And they go, oh. And the next thing you know, you're playing with it. You're rubbing it on the ground and there's more shiny. And then you dedicate yourself a little more. You go get a piece of sandpaper. You're still playing around. It's still the thing that you like to do, but you're rubbing it now. And then all of a sudden you realize there might be something valuable in here. And the whole time you're just playing with this rock and you're uncovering something very valuable. And the next thing you know, it's a diamond. And it becomes the thing that carries you through. I think we all have that thing. that can possibly carry us through. But again, there is a system, and it's called tinfoil time right now. You saw it on the thumbnail. There is a system put in place to keep us from that thing. I think the system is meant to keep us from that place. And it's these people, Rogan, Watts, these people who have done it, or at least have lived a life and are talking to a big audiences now, that kind of snap us out of that, Because even if you don't feel like an NPC, you might be forced into a position where you got to be like an NPC. You got to work this job, and you're just a cog in the machine, and it doesn't feel good all the time, but you're doing it whether it's for your family or to survive or whatever is making you feel like you have to do it. I think the system's set up that way. I don't think they want us all to find that special rock that's really a diamond. I don't think they want us to actually find that, Too many people find what they're supposed to do, and that inspires people, and then you start realizing, if in mass numbers we all started realizing that we don't have to work at the big corporation and do that thing, and we all just started setting out on this journey, it would raise quality of life up tremendously, but there'd be people at the tippy top that would everything they've built would start to shake, and eventually it'd start to crumble. And then they'd fall down and they'd be right next to us. And we'd be like, wow, look at you. Maybe you should pick up one of these rocks and see if there's something inside of it. That's what we did. We've been finding the things that we love. I think there's people that don't want to do that. Or they did, and now it's in now they're incentivized to keep us from doing that. Just come work for me. What's that saying? There's a saying, if you don't follow your own dreams, or if you don't go and build your own dreams, you'll build someone else's. Something around that. I think that's what they want. And it's so hard to break away from it all. I've been experimenting, or at least playing around with the idea of the simulation. And I am Christian, but I don't just box myself away from thinking about things. Like, I can think, so I'm allowed to think and think about that. And in fact, it brings me closer to God, not further away from God. I don't know about anybody else, but I think about that, and it seems like if there was a game afoot, that would be part of it. Will your avatar wake up to the illusion? Because that's what you would want. At the end, if it was a simulation, you would want your character to get to the point where it realizes the illusion, and you'd want it to get to the point where it started following its dreams. What is that thing Joe Rogan says? What does he say? Am I even allowed to play it? I don't even know if I'm allowed to play it here. Let's just this is a anti-ice rally here. That's I like having fun, and then I got to go back to talking about politics. Anti-ice rally was absolutely ridiculous. No, Joe Rogan, hero, the hero of your own story, right? Kind of goes along with the whole simulation talk. Is this gonna be it? Is this him actually talking about it? Wow, this is old school Joe Rogan.
But I think what you were bringing up with Joey is a real good point, that a lot of people say, I just want to sort of, they're kind of dabbling in the idea of improving themselves. And the real way to do it is you got to write down what the fuck you want and then go after it. Because otherwise you live in sort of a wishy-washy world. If you decide, I'm going to get down to bang, I'm going to do this, I'm going to run a marathon in less than 5 hours, I'm going to, whatever the fuck it is, you got to write that down and go for it. What I tell people is the best advice that I've ever heard, the best advice I ever came up with, is that live your life like you're the hero in your movie. And right now is when the fucking movie starts and your life is a shitbag disaster, like every fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he wakes up and makes a blender full of pizza and ice cream, and that's what you know what I mean? Yeah. Those guys where they're like on the brink, they put the gun in their mouth and they put it down because they see a photo of their daughter. Pretend that's you. Pretend you are, right now, you're in the part of the movie that starts and it shows you as a fucking loser.
and just decide not to be a loser anymore. Live your life like there's a documentary crew following you around and you are analyzing your own behavior. Do what you would want to do so that your kids one day would look back at it and see that documentary and look on it with pride. Like, wow, my dad was a bad motherfucker.
There's going to be a lot of bleeping there. I'm going to censor a lot of those words. I already know. But that whole aspect, right? He talks about it, go like there's somebody making a documentary. It kind of goes along with that whole simulation thought process, right? You know, even if I were to take this and make it into a more handsome version of someone saying the same thing, and in modern day, you'd live your life like someone... Live your life like you are a video game player, and there's no way this whole level is made for you to win. Couldn't say it as well as Joe Rogan, but you know what I mean. Live your life like as if that's the thing. Like this is supposed to happen. You know when you're playing a game that you're supposed to be able to beat the game. You understand completely. You go, oh, I'm gonna beat this. They wouldn't have made this game if I couldn't beat it, you know. So you have fun. You know it's a game because you're like, oh, this is the game. Yeah, they made this. They make some levels hard. They make some levels really easy. Some parts I can glide through. Other parts it takes me a few tries. But you understand that you're gonna get through it, and I guess you got to live life that way as well. You know, you gotta. Someone in the comments made fun of me for saying you know all the time. That's what I do when I'm working through a thought. It's just a thing that I do. I get it from my mom. My mom does that. She'll be like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's what she says all the time. But yeah, live your life like that. You know? And dance through it all. You know, now I'm so conscious of it. I listen to Alan Watts a lot, and I always have, but I'm really glad that I am now bringing it to the podcast, meshing it together with Rogan. This channel will always have Rogan in it, or at least maybe one day I'll move on and start doing interviews like I'm doing my best impression of Joe Rogan because I admire him so much. But I am glad that I get to start showing this part of not myself, but of the world. Alan Watts is tremendous. And having conversations like this is very important. I don't know about you. You could just be listening to this and just having a good time. But for me, podcasts have always been my person that I could talk to while I'm on the way to work, commuting, working out, etc. And the things that we put into our heads, I like to inform people on things. That's why I always glide towards politics. But the things that we're putting in our heads should be somewhat positive, you know, or at least make us think so we can come to positive conclusions on our own. I think that's important, really important. But yeah, life, man. What else did I have as points? Joe Rogan talking about failure being important and very personal, or at least his guest was saying that. You know, if you love and focus, move away from. Yeah, it was funny the way his guest, and yeah, let me know if you've ever done this. I know I have. I know I've done this. But he was talking about moving away from tennis so he can identify as a comedian. And what I wrote down is he was moving away from who he was in order to become who he was. And I guess you're supposed to do that in a way, but not really. Again, he came up with tennis, and tennis gave him the foundations and the disciplines and the work ethic to be a good comedian. So why would you move away from that? There are certain things that we have in us that will bring us to the next level. There's some things that need to die away and go away and fall off. But there's certain things at our core that are going to help us. You know, for me, it was always speaking. I may not be a good speaker, but I like it. I like talking. I'm doing it in a room by myself for 40 minutes now. I like talking. It's a thing that I really like to do, and I really like to talk with people. I like to go back and forth, which is why you can see me in my own comment section so much. It's not for engagement. It's because I like to talk. That's a core thing with me. It always has been. Imagine moving away from that. Imagine me moving away from that. Where would I be today? Would I be doing this? Probably not. But again, just want to end it with dance through life, guys. And I know that's very hard when you hear someone say that, because there's such peaks and valleys, deep valleys in life where things get so dark. But you do have to do that. And, you know, for me, there's a lot of faith that happens with that. Again, this faith comes from God, you know. It comes from my relationship with Christ. But also, we talked about the whole game theory. This wouldn't have been constructed. If it's constructed, it wouldn't have been put this way if for you to fail. You are supposed to succeed. It's just all about how many times you try. And if you're willing to continue to dance through life and take this Alan Watts type of mentality and know that the here and now is all there is, and you're willing to take what Joe Rogan said and show up continuously, you'll get through it okay. I'm out.